everyone, welcome back to another Creative Tap tutorial. In this tutorial I'm going to show you how to add a flock of flying birds to your matte painting or to any sort of visual effect shot that you want. This could even be used in a motion graphics project really. There's no reason why this process couldn't be used. So I'm going to be using two bits of software today. I'm going to be using After Effects and I'm going to be using Adobe Illustrator. Now I've kind of jumped a little bit ahead just to kind of make this tutorial a little bit shorter and sharper for you guys, just so I'm not kind of waffling on too much. What I've got in here is, if I show you layer by layer, I've got the back wing, okay, so the back wing of a bird. You can get some clip art, you can get an actual picture of a bird and trace around, you can do whatever you want to get this. I've then got the body of the bird, so if I just turn that on its own, you can see the back wing is a layer behind him, so it replicates the layer being, it being a back wing. And then we've got a front wing, okay? And I've offset the front wing. These are basically the same layer. They're basically the same thing, but I offset it by about 10 pixels the other way. I just moved it to the side. So again, you can see that there are two there. I mean, it's going to be a very small black silhouette in the sky anyway, so it's not too important. But yeah, I've got front wing, I've got the actual body of the bird, and you can use, like I said, you can use something to trace around. You can get like the Twitter logo. Well, probably shouldn't say that, but you can just get, you can do what you need to do to kind of get this. Okay. Basically, what I did then is I saved this out as an .ai file. Make sure it is important that your back wing, your bird body, and your front wing are all on separate layers. That's key for this. All right. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to jump into After Effects and show you how to animate a flock of these flying. So inside After Effects, I've just got this very basic matte painting that I created. I got this image from Pexels and then I extended it out a little bit and put this ruins in there. This links to some of the other matte painting tutorials I've gone through, but that doesn't matter. I'm just going to show you how to animate a flock of birds. So first thing I'm going to do is just double click in here or go File, Import, because I want to, or Control or Command I, because I want to import my Adobe Illustrator file. So if we click this, we've got some options. Import as footage, we don't want to do that. We want to import as composition and retain layer sizes I use. So if we click that and then click Import, okay, it'll then import here instead of a piece of just a one layer which is all flattened so you can't access the layers. What you've got, if you double click, you've then got a composition which is made, and if we turn the background off so we can see individually, because they're black as well as the background, we've got all our individual layers. Okay, so I'm just going to close that down, come into this is where our matte painting is. You can create a new composition if you want for yours or whatever. Just make sure if you do create a new composition that you make sure that you've got a solid which isn't black in the background, or you just turn your black background off because the bird is going to be black unless you've done it a different color. What I'm going to do then is I'm going to bring in my bird composition, drag it down, place it on top. And there we have our bird. Okay, so mine are going to be going from left to right. So I'm not going to worry too much about scaling it down yet. What I want to do is I want to double click this composition to come in, and I'm now viewing these three layers. So we've gone from here, double clicked it, and we're now viewing these three layers. Make sure as well you turn your black background off if you need to. But what I'm going to start doing is I'm going to start animating the wings of this bird. So first of all, the front wing, I want to turn that onto 3D, because if I hit R now on that front wing, I've got the rotation properties so I can animate it actually in 3D like that. Okay, so it's going to be, oh, accidentally saved, meant to do Control Z, not Control S. If I want to animate the X rotation so it flaps like that, but you can see if I turn these off, you can see that right now it's animating around the middle, and I want it to animate and swing from here. So if I just zero this out, what I want to do is this pan behind tool, or also known as the anchor point tool. If you click this, you can then click this little anchor point and you can move it to the top by here. And now if we move this Z rotation, it's gonna animate from that point. Okay, so again, if this was down here, for example, it would rotate from that point, and you don't want to do that, so I'm going to actually undo it. Just make sure that your anchor point is right at the top, and we will be animating then from here. Okay, so let's turn on the body of our bird just so we've got reference. what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off by coming up, so I have it about, I'd say, minus 130, something like that. Or actually, let's go minus 140, so we've got it a little bit more. I'm going to set a keyframe just by clicking the stopwatch by there. I'm going to come forward about 10 frames for now, so using my page down key, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, or you can just type 10 in there. I'm now going to bring this down, so 0 was where we kind of started, so if I bring that down to 0, is that enough? I think I'm going to bring it down to a little bit more. No, you don't really need to, so I'm going to bring that down to plus 10, okay? So basically what we've got, if we zoom in, at the beginning, we've got a keyframe at minus 140. And your actual keyframes may be different to mine, because when we imported this, my sort of wing was already facing down like this, so I only need to go back to plus 10. So your values may be different, but just make sure that your animation goes from, when it's up, your wing's up the top, and then from when your wing's down at the bottom. So I think actually 10 may be too much. So I'm going to, on this keyframe, I'm just going to change mine to 0, because I think it comes down a little bit too much. Something like, actually, I think I'll go to minus 20. There we go. So let's just have a quick look. Let's come back. Yeah, I like that. Okay, and we're only going to animate the first two keyframes, okay? So I know that the first one is minus 140 to minus 20, that's fine. If I turn the other wing on now, I'm going to turn this front wing off. We're going to do the exact same thing. So if we turn it 3D, hit R, and we started with our wings up, didn't we? Let's just turn this one back on. Yeah, we started with our wings up. So first of all, I'm going to get my anchor point tool. Actually, I nearly went and just started animating. So if we turn this layer off, go on to back wing, get our anchor point tool, which is already selected, pull this up so it swings around this point. You can also, if you hold control, it should, there you go, when I hold control, you'll see it sort of snaps to that anchor point at the top, so it'll, do it dead on. So that's another little tip. Right, if I turn my bird body back on, it's at the beginning, it's X rotation, so I want to go, this is the back wing, so it needs to go the other way. So we're going to come up to like plus 130. Let's try plus 130, because I think the other one was minus 140. So if we turn the other one on, yeah, it's just still showing through by there, so that's quite good. Had we have gone a little bit higher with this, it may have been hidden completely, so I'm going to stick with 130 because we can still see it a little bit, so that's quite a good technique as well. Just make sure you can still see the back wing. So I'll set a keyframe for that one. Come forward 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 frames, and I'm going to come down to around, I think plus 50 should be alright. Let's have a go. Let's type 50 in there, and again let's compare that with turning the other one on. That should go down a bit more, I think. So plus 50, let's go down to about here. So actually I'm going to bring it to plus 35. Okay, and it's always good to compare to your other wing just to make sure it's on the kind of same level, but you can still see it offsetted a little bit. Okay, so what we've got now, as I turn them both back on, is we've got our bird flapping like that. So another quick tip just to see if it's working correctly. If you come into two views, okay, you'll then, just drop down two views, you'll then have basically two views of your composition. So if I click into this one, so this is the one active camera which we were viewing earlier. If I click into this one, I can change this to custom view, and if I turn the background off, we can use, which is that button there. So I've made sure this one's selected. You can see these little blue triangles around whichever one is selected. Turn the background off, custom view 1, and if we get our camera tool, so just unified camera tool, we can actually spin around, so we can actually see, if we look and zoom in, we can actually see what's happening by here. So you can see these two wings are animating like so. So if we come through, yeah, that's working for me. And yeah, reason we can't see this one is because it's basically a layer in 2D space, so, and it's not a 3D layer. If we turned it 3D, then we would see it. But there's no real primal reason why we turn this 3D, but just for viewing, yeah, that makes sense. So there we go. We've got this. If we go back, we've got that flapping like that. In the 2D view, it looks a lot cleaner than the 3D view, but that's the view you're going to see it anyway. So if we go back to one view, and just let my laptop catch up with us a second. Oh no, it's because I was off the composition. Right, so that's basically what we've got. What you'll want to do as well is, I'm just going to give it a quick play through. So I'm just going to give it a quick preview to see, is that quick enough? Don't know, I'll see later. What we want to do now is we want to loop these keyframes with a little expression. So what I'm going to do, first of all, I'm going to select both of my keyframes, click and drag. I'm then going to click Alt on this stopwatch. So Alt click on the stopwatch, and what you'll see is it'll open up for you a little window whereby you can type in what's called an expression. So I want to make this loop, okay? And the type of loop we're going to use is a ping pong loop. Ping pong because it goes back and forth like a ping pong ball. Okay? So what I'm going to type in here is loop out with a capital O for out. Okay, so loop out, open brackets, and then little I can't remember what they're called, speech marks, I think, yeah, and then ping and pong, and then you close in your brackets and your speech marks here. So then hit enter, click out, and what will happen if you scrub through, it's only doing it to this one at the moment, but you'll see that this is now repeated. This front wing is now repeated. So all we need to do is we need to do that to the same to the other layer. So I'm just going to click back in here, Control C, just to copy that expression. Come back into this, select these, Alt click, so we can type a expression in there. Control or Command V just to copy it in. And what you've got is you've only made 2 keyframes were there, 2 keyframes were there. But if we play this through now, we've looped those keyframes, so that's going to be continually flapping. And you know what the brilliant bit about this is if we just bring this up, right, if we think, oh, that's going too slow or too fast, okay, select these last 2 keyframes. If you pull them apart, for example, so now that initial flap is going to be longer, what you've got is it's still looping it, but it's paying attention to these 2 keyframes. It basically looks at all the information between these 2. Once it passes this loop out, so after it's finished it, it'll just basically repeat that. So if you want to move them closer together, I think when I was doing a little test earlier, I had mine on 9 frames. 9 frames seem to be the kind of most ideal. So if we go try that, yeah, you can do whatever, but make sure as well you turn motion blur on. So let's have a little bit of motion blur on these now, and you'll see when I turn motion blur on and off, if you look at the wings, that's going to make it a lot more kind of aesthetically pleasing. So now what you've got, may take a little bit longer to render, but you've got this. So good news is we're kind of halfway there. If we come back in to our map painting, everything we've just done there is taking place here. So if you just play this through, that's all happening within this composition, okay? Now what we want to do is, first of all, guys, I'm going to turn my little composition down to 3rd quality just for now, because I'm doing it on a laptop and trying to screen record, and it gets very fussy. So what you're going to want to do is hit S on this layer. I'm going to scale this down to about 10. Even 10's a little bit big. I'm going to go to 8. Okay, great. And I'm just going to move this guy just up to this top corner, because I'm going to have him flying from right to left. Okay, so just up here. So scale at 7. What I want to do is I want to go to the position, so hit P with your layer, and I also want to add what's called a wiggle expression, because if I just have him come in left to right, it looks very, very robotic. Okay, so I'm going to, if I alt click the position stopwatch, alt click, we can type another expression, and basically this expression is called a wiggle. Okay, and easiest way to explain this, we're wiggling the position. Okay, so imagine position is X and Y, and it's just wiggling the amount he's moving. Okay, so open brackets, and I'm going to type in, because I know this one worked earlier when I did a test, 3, 15. Now what this is saying is 3 times per second we want this to wiggle around by 15 pixels, okay? So 3 times a second, this bird is going to wiggle by 15 pixels in the X and the Y. So if I just hit enter or click off, just to let that wiggle take effect, okay? If we play this now, you can see that by 15 pixels in the X and Y, 3 times a second, this little bird is going to move around. So as we animate him left to right, there's a little bit of randomness in there. You know what, maybe 15 is a little bit too much, so let's do it 10. So at 3 times a second, it's going to wiggle by about 10 pixels, okay? So you can always go in and change this. So let's give it another go. So maybe a little bit less. Yeah, that's probably working a bit better, actually. Okay, and when we animate them left to right, it'll all make sense then. So we've got our first bird, all right? Let's just put him in the middle. What we want to do now is, now that we've added that expression, just click Control D. And we are going to duplicate our bird. So if we zoom in, we should have one on top of the other. I'm going to change the scale of this one just to about maybe 6. So we're going to have a real variation in here. And basically, I'm going to keep on repeating this until I've got like 15 birds at different sizes. So hit S, this one's going to be 5. Control D, let's get another one. And let's go for this one. Let's make him at one close to the camera. So let's, for his scale, go to 12. No, that's too big. How about 11 or 10.5? There you go. Okay. Duplicate again. Let's get another one. And S for scale. Let's go to 7. Okay. And Control D. I may fast forward this as I'm doing it. Basically, I'm going to get like 20 odd copies and just make them different sizes. Okay. So I probably will skim through this bit. Okay, welcome back. I've actually got quite a lot of birds now in my composition, so I think I've got like 25 odd. I went a little bit over the top, really. Well, not over the top. There's no harm in adding more. I think I'm going to leave mine there. You could play around with the spacing of them and all that. Wow, I've got nearly 30. That's crazy. Yeah, I've got exactly 30 birds. Right, okay, didn't realise I had that many. What I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to shift select all of my bird compositions, Control Shift and C. Okay, so Control Shift and C. What that's going to do is it's going to put all of these 30 bird layers just into one. So if I go birds or bird flock, click OK. We've now compressed all of that information just into one layer. So if we zoom back out, we can get this bird flock and basically pull it off to the side. And if we hit P for our position, click there, and then, so we've got our keyframe at the beginning. If we move to about, say, 35 seconds, like that, we can then move them across so they've animated in. Now that's probably going to be quite slow, and you can see there's a little bit of randomness in there, so we're nearly there, but that's very, very slow. So if we move that just so the speed of the wings, I think I may also actually scale this down to about 80%. Yeah, I think, or maybe even 70. Yeah, let's go like that. So they're way off in the distance. We also need to, now that I've done that, actually, it's just added another position keyframe in there. So if you are I'm going to delete them. If you are going to scale yours down, just do it beforehand. Okay, so I think, yeah, that's going to be good scale. We need to color correct them later, but don't worry. So yeah, position, I think I'm going to start with them already in shot, just so it looks a little less faked. Come to 20 seconds, say, for example, hold shift, click as you move them across. So what we've got now is something like that. Okay, so that's all very well and good. There's a few things to add realism that we need to do. You can see they all flap their wings together, so they're all down at the same time and all that. That's not going to work. So come into here, and what we can do is literally, if we turn our background off, you'll see this is going to be more apparent. We can basically start offsetting some of these layers just like this. Okay, so I'm just clicking and dragging. So basically, if we move all of these out to the side, you can see some of them are starting earlier. I mean, they all at 0 seconds are going to start at the same time, but because we've offsetted them, some of them are going to be at different rates within their flap. a sentence I never thought I would actually say. Have I just duplicated all my birds? I have. Let's undo that. Yeah, so what you want to do is you'll want to work through all of these layers, offsetting them just a little bit like that, just so they are all flapping at different rates, really. So very quickly going to do mine, and what you should see is it all start to line up. And how many have we got left? Not many. There we go. So they should all start to sort of flap at different rates. That's the plan anyway. So let's go and see that now in work. So if we go back, you can see that their flap rates are now at different points in time, which is going to help. So let's just check now that they're moving across. Are they moving fast enough? Probably not. Their flap rates, the rate at which they're flapping their wings, are a little bit fast. So you could go back and you could change that. Let's just make sure they move a little bit faster across the screen now to kind of coincide with that. So again, you could repeatedly go back in and you could change things until you think they're looking right. Something like that, maybe a little bit faster. But there's one or two more things now which we're going to do. There you go. They may have a bit too much of a wiggle, so what you could do is go back into your bird by here and position. You'd probably have to go into each one and then just change. Where is the wiggle? Is the wiggle? The wiggle isn't in here, is it? P. And drop down. Yeah, you have to go back into your wiggle, maybe change this to 3 by 5, but you know, for the sake of this tutorial, I won't bother with that. The other thing to kind of make them fit in there a little bit more, there's two things. So if we go to levels, I'm going to drag a levels onto this bird layer. Okay, if we zoom in, right, this is quite grey and quite bleak, and the sky is actually quite bright. So what you'd expect is you wouldn't expect the birds to be as piercingly black as they are. I have uploaded another video on matching black points within Photoshop. The same exact principle is the same in After Effects. So it's another part of this series. But what I'm basically going to do is I'm going to take my input black, and basically if I push this, they now, if we zoom up a little bit, that's probably a bit too much, but basically this is what they were before. Very, very black and piercing, and I'm basically going to just mellow off that black point a little bit, okay? The other thing I'm going to do is, if we go to blur, I'm going to put a, where is it? I'm going to put a fast blur. No, I won't put a fast blur. Yeah, I'll put a fast blur. Fast box blur on them, and I think I'm just going to blur them by 1 pixel, or maybe 0.5, because they are quite away from the camera. So let's come back now. Let's go full screen, and if we turn these on and off, you can see where we've come from. I think that blur may even be a bit too much. You could probably maybe scale them down a touch. So let's go 65. Again, you can play around with this all day, but basically what you've got then is probably too many birds, and they're probably flapping a little bit too fast for my liking and moving a little bit too fast. But it's a way of adding realism into your shot. You could, again, just blur them a little bit more. And basically, these are the techniques that you'll use to add flapping birds to your scene. But to be honest, it'll take a little bit of playing around with to get it looking right as per shot. So if I were to, I want to end this tutorial here, but if I were to carry on, what I would be doing is probably slowing down how fast they're flapping. So I'd be coming into here, also taking down the wiggle, so maybe 2 times a second, for example. You can go 2 times a second. I want you to wiggle by 5 pixels, okay? And then you'd have to go through and do that for each of them. So copy and paste this through for each of your click off for each of your position data. So you just, copy and paste it like so. And then also I'd probably come into here and make the flap a little bit slower as well. So maybe about 14 frames or whatever. But yeah, basically that's going to have updated that now. So their flap will be a little bit slower, and only one of the wiggles will have changed because you've got to do it to each layer. But yeah, that's basically how you add a flock of birds into your matte painting. So I hope that technique helped you. Play around with it until you get something that works. And yeah, cheers for tuning in.